We can just get up and move over to my side here. Because there are a lot of people coming, we don't want to lose them. We want to make sure that they join us and inshallah will benefit. So without any further ado, I would like to invite Samahat al-Sayyid Hossein Al-Qazwini to the podium with another salawat.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. صلى الله عليك يا رسول الله. صلى الله عليك يا سيدي ويا مولاي يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة ويا عبرة كل مؤمن ومؤمنة يا ليتنا كنا معكم سادتي فنفوز فوزا عظيما. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل يا أهل الكتاب لا تغلوا في دينكم ولا تقولوا على الله إلا الحق. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Extremism is to go all the way to one side, either to the far right or to the far left, not standing in the middle, not holding a middle ground. This is extremism. This is a part of extremism. Not being moderate, not thinking moderately, logically, but rather radically, emotionally. This leads to extremism. And there's various forms of extremism. There's political, there's social, and there's religious. Political extremism, like the far right and the far left. In every country, you have the major conservatives and you have the far left liberals. They're extremes, but on two sides of the spectrum. In all politics, you have two extremes. You have social extremism. Social extremism has various aspects. How some people dress, how they behave. There's people with, for example, piercings and tattoos. which is a type of social extremism. Living too extravagantly or living very cheap. This is a form of social extremism. But the one that we'd like to talk about, the one that appeals to us and has to do with us, is religious extremism. What do we mean by religious extremism? How do we define religious extremism? Religious extremism is when you make a religious debate over anything and over everything. Everything to you has a religious debate. And not only is it a debate, but you make that debate personal. You make a personal attack. Although it's a religious matter, it's a religious debate, but you turn it into a personal attack on your counterpart, on who you're debating. Being aggressive over religious opinions. Everyone is entitled to a religious opinion. Everyone is entitled. You can hold an opinion on whatever you'd like. But being aggressive with your opinion, believing that you're right and everyone else is wrong, this is extremism. Trying to prove that everyone else is wrong and you're the only one that's right. Your religious opinions matter and no one else's religious matter. That's extremism. Everyone goes to hell and you go to heaven. That's religious extremism. Condemning everyone. All views, all opinions. Everyone's going to hell. This is extremism. And sometimes these extremists, they portray abusive behavior, violent behavior. The rhetoric is violent. The rhetoric is abusive. It's aggressive. These extremists, they see things as black and white. For extremists, everything is black and white. There's nothing in the middle. There's no middle ground. That's extremism. In history, we've had a lot of extremists. And I'll give you an example from the lifetime of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. Imam Ali alayhi salam says, هَلَكَ فِيَّ اثنان محب غال ومبغض قال. When it comes to Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, Amir al-Mu'mineen has a polarization effect. His character, you either love him or you hate him. There were the Khawarij during the lifetime of Amir al-Mu'mineen who called him a kafir. They believed that Ali ibn Abi Talib was a kafir. And they fought him. And they killed him. And they chose to kill him on the eve of the 19th of Ramadan, which is possibly what? Laylatul Qadr. So that the reward of that action is multiplied. You see, this is religious ignorance. Ignorance is of all kinds, but the worst kind is religious ignorance. Religious ignorance. When you're ignorant in the matters of religion, but you think you're doing right. So these individuals, they believe that Imam Ali was a kafir. On the other side of the spectrum, you have the ghulat. The ghulat, during the lifetime of Amir al-Mu'mineen, they claimed him to be a God. They believed that Ali ibn Abi Talib was God. He creates, he kills, he takes life, he gives life. Amir al-Mu'mineen says both sides are wrong. Both sides are extreme. Those who labeled him as a kafir and those who labeled him as God. These were two extremes that we saw throughout history. And there have been extremism. There have been extremists throughout history. And by the way, in all religions, don't think that only in Islam we have extremists. No, there's extremists in Christianity. There's extremists in Judaism. There's extremists in Buddhism. In Myanmar, remember a couple of years ago, when they were killing Muslims? They're Buddhists. But there's extremists. In every religion, there's extremists. There's a very interesting book I encourage my dear young brothers and sisters to read by Karen Armstrong called The Battle for God. The Battle for God. a history of extremism in all religions. It's not just in Islam that we have extremists. طيب. But you would expect that today, with the advent of the internet and with information available out there, we're advancing technologically, scientifically. We landed on the moon. We will soon land on Mars. That people will be appreciative of others, understanding of others. There would be no extremism. But no, we see that today we have a lot of extremist groups. In fact, the more we're advancing technologically and scientifically, the more we have extremists. We have those who condemn one another. طيب. And extremism can be very dangerous. What are some of the dangers of extremism? وصلوا على محمد وآل محمد. First of all, extremism can cause disunity amongst Muslims. Now I'm speaking about extremists in Islam. Our extremists. We have nothing to do with extremists in other religions. Let's talk about extremists in Islam. First of all, extremists cause disunity amongst us. They cause discord amongst us, even amongst the followers of Ahlul Bayt, followers of various maraji'. This individual follows one marji', another individual follows another marji'. These guys condemn those guys condemn these guys, accusing each other of deviance. We have a group today, they accuse everyone of deviance, and they're the only ones on the right path. Everyone else is a deviant. Everyone else is lost. You have others that accuse everyone of espionage. Everyone is a spy. I'm a spy, you're a spy. You work for the CIA, I work for the MI6. You work for the FBI, and so on and so on. Everyone's a spy. Everyone's an agent. Except them, of course. No, they're pure. But everyone else is a spy. Everyone else is accused of espionage. Or they accuse others of the destruction of Islam. يسعى لهدم الدين. He is trying to destroy Islam. He's building Islam. He's saving Islam, but everyone else is destroying Islam. This is extremism. Extremism can cause persecution of certain groups. When extremists are in power, they have the ability to persecute minorities. Anyone who disagrees with them. Anyone who has a different opinion, a different approach, has different beliefs, they're persecuted. They excommunicate them. They make them into outcasts, not accepted. Some minorities are victimized because of extremist thought. Because of certain extremist individuals who are in power, who have money and authority. Anyone who disagrees with them, they become victimized. They're persecuted, they're excommunicated. Let me give you an example. Those who believe in philosophy and arfan, although I don't accept everything they believe in, we believe that some of the things that they believe in could be wrong or it could be a mistake. But this is one. But to victimize them, that's another. That's another. We have some groups that believe in philosophy and arfan that have been victimized, that have been marginalized, that have been excommunicated. You know individuals like whom? Individuals like Al-Allama Tabatabai, the author of Al-Mizan, was victimized for believing in philosophy and arfan. Why? Disagree with him. You're entitled to disagree. Have an academic discussion. Have an academic dialogue. Why victimize? Why persecute? Why excommunicate? Why? Amongst the dangers of extremism is that it will bring an end to free thinking, to freedom of thought. Because you'll be afraid of disagreeing. If there's a group that will excommunicate you and consider you a deviant or even a spy, you won't think freely. You won't express your opinions freely. The environment of freedom of thinking, saying your ideas and thoughts freely, freedom of expression, will die. Why? Because there's a fear of being excommunicated. What if I say this and I'll get in trouble? What if I hold this opinion and I'll get in trouble? Do you know how many scholars and ulama have had to hide their genuine views and opinions out of fear of excommunication? Out of fear of being marginalized? They hold views, but because they're unorthodox, they go against the mainstream, their unpopular views, they're afraid of expressing themselves. Or they've written an article, they're afraid of publishing that article. They've written a book, they're afraid of publishing that book because it goes against the norm. They're afraid of excommunication. That's extremism. And that's very dangerous because it kills the environment of freedom of thought and freedom of expression. This puts an end to intellectual contributions and advancement. This is dangerous. This is something that the Catholic Church exercised. Do you remember? In Europe, when they enforced dogma, when they fought scientists like Galileo, when they imprisoned scientists. This is very dangerous because this puts an end to scientific achievement and contribution. Extremists, my dear friends, they keep us busy with silly matters, petty matters, things that don't really matter. They keep us busy with, and they keep us distracted from the real things that matter, from the things that really matter. They keep us busy with petty things, petty arguments. They keep this ummah busy. During the days of Imam al-Hadi, alayhi salam, there was a controversy in the ummah regarding khalq al-Quran, the creation of Quran. Is Quran old or new? Something very silly. Very, very silly. One camp would say the Quran is old. Al-Quranu qadim. Others would say Al-Quran hadith. The Quran is new. Something very, very silly. Why? If you say it's old because it's the word of God and because God is old, so His words are old. Those who say it's new, they say only God is old. His words can't be old as well because we'll have two things that are old. Something very silly. Very silly. The ummah was busy fighting over the matter of the creation of the Quran. Is it old or is it new? Al-Imam al-Hadi at the time, he told the Shia, stay out of it. Stay out of this fight. We have nothing to do with this. Let others be busy. Let them fight over this. But not the Shia. Because this is something silly. This is something petty. And Imam al-Hadi, he said this is a fitna. This is a fitna. Sometimes there's a debate. You see there's a debate. You think it's engaging. It could be intellectual. But it's not. It's distracting. It's a fitna. It's meant to be a problem. I remember in the month of Muharram, which is meant to be a time of unity for the Shia. When we gather from different races, different nationalities, different backgrounds, we gather and we mourn Imam Hossein alayhi salam. In some communities, they stir a problem, a fitna, regarding tatbir. What do you think of tatbir? There's one camp that says we have to do tatbir. Tatbir is striking the head with a sword and bloodletting for Imam Hussein. We have to do this. This is the way that we portray our love for Imam Hussein. You have another camp that says this is disastrous for Islam. This will ruin the image of Islam. And every year during Muharram, when we're supposed to talk about the bigger issues, the more important issues, when it's meant to be a month where we unify and gather, we argue over petty matters. Over petty matters. Whether tatbir is good or bad, whether we should do it or we shouldn't do it. I don't have an opinion on this. I'm not saying whether it's good or not. I'm saying arguing over it is bad. Extremists from both sides. This is extremism from both sides. طيب. What are signs of religious extremism? How can you know whether this alim the speaker, your wife, your husband, your cousin, or even yourself. Are you a religious extremist or not? Is this alim an extremist or not? How can you differentiate between extremists and non-extremists? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Extremists usually give out signs. They give out signs. They shout that we're extremists. Of course, they don't say it. No extremist ever admits that he's an extremist or she's an extremist. They say we're moderate. We have moderate views. We're mainstream. But they're actually extremists. They exhibit certain behavior that we need to watch out for and be careful. Number one, an extremist cannot have a peaceful, intellectual, religious discussion. Whenever they talk about religion, they get angry. Any religious topic, hijab, hajj, khums, taqleed, ijtihad, anything that has to do with religion, as soon as they start a discussion, they become aggressive. They become angry. They become emotional. That's extremism. Non-extremists do not become emotional. You have a regular academic debate, intellectual debate on religion, on any matter. There's no reason for you to become emotional. There's no reason for you to become violent and abusive and aggressive. If you show these tendencies, or you know anyone that shows these tendencies, that means they're extremists. This is number one. Number two, extremists condemn all other views, all other opinions, all other schools of thought, unaccepting of the other. They do not welcome other views and other thoughts. They see everyone as a deviant. Everyone is lost. They're not on the right path. This is extremism. When you're not accepting of others. A normal person who's not an extremist welcomes other views. You're entitled to a view. You're entitled to a view. Everyone is entitled to a view. They don't make it personal. But extremists can't handle other views. They see any other view as a form of deviance. You have strayed away from the right path. Number three, extremists send everyone to hellfire. Someone has given them a pass to hellfire and they pass it out free, without charge. And there's only one pass to heaven and it's in their pocket. That's it. No one else has that pass to heaven. Everyone else is in hellfire. This is extremism. When you're sending everyone to hell and you're reserving a seat for yourself in heaven, there's something wrong with you. There's something wrong with your train of thoughts, with your ideology, with your theology. Allah did not create hell and heaven, did not create heaven for one person and hell for everyone else. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is merciful. Allah's mercy encompasses everyone, to the point that even shaitan on the day of judgment will have hope in Allah's mercy. Even shaitan will have hope in Allah's mercy. وَرَحْمَتِي وَسِعَتْ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ. If you're sending everyone to hellfire, you have to review your views and your opinions. There's something wrong with you. Number four, extremists can never be convinced. They're never influenced. They're always right. No matter how many times you try to argue with them, debate them, try to prove them wrong, try to prove their argument is wrong, they're never convinced. Never convinced. This is a problem. This is extremism. You know, unless you're Socrates or Aristotle, your argument will always have, will sometimes have fallacies. You can be wrong at times. You're not always right. Even Socrates and Aristotle were sometimes wrong. You can't always be right. You can't say, I'm never wrong. My argument is never wrong. If this is what you believe, there's something wrong. That's a form of extremism. Extremists will never acknowledge that they're ever wrong. Normal people Sometimes you could be right, sometimes you could be wrong. And when you're proven wrong, you acknowledge. You say, you're right. I made a mistake here. This premise of mine, in my argument, is wrong. I made a mistake. But extremists never acknowledge the fact that they are wrong. Never. That's extremism. Number 5, extremists always fall into double standards. They fall into double standards. They always make exceptions, either for themselves, or their school of thought, or their people, or their government, if they are politicians. They always make exceptions. They fall into double standards. That's how you can tell an extremist from a non-extremist. They fall into double standards. Let me give you an example. For example, they attack you for meeting someone controversial. Why did you meet this person? Why did you take a picture with this person, this controversial political figure, scholar, what have you? Why? And they condemn you for meeting that scholar, while at the same time their own people will meet that same individual, that same politician, or that same scholar, but they'll make excuses. They say, no, let us explain. Explain what? Explain what? You're falling into a double standard. It's okay for you to meet, for example, certain political figures, but I can't. How does this work? How does this double standard work? Either it's okay or it's not okay. But it's okay for you and not okay for me. That's a double standard. That means you're an extremist. That means your way of thinking, it's extremism. Number 6, extremists make everything haram. Everything to them is haram. Everything for them is kufr and shirk. This is haram, that is haram. They're the haram police. Everything for them is haram. This is not justified. You know, making what is halal into haram is just as ugly as making that which is haram into halal. You can't make something which is haram into halal. Same thing, you can't make that which is halal into haram. Who are you to make everything haram? For others, not for them. For them, everything is halal. But for others, everything is haram. This is haram, that is haram, this ziyarah is haram, that food is haram, meeting with this figure is haram, living in America is haram, paying taxes is haram, elections are haram, everything's haram. Allah says, قُلْ مَنْ حَرَّمَ زِينَةَ اللَّهِ الَّتِي أَخْرَجَ لِعِبَادِهِ وَالطَّيِّبَاتِ مِنَ الرِّزْقِ. Say, who are you to make that which is halal into haram? That's a form of extremism. By the way, now that we've reached here, let me say this. I wasn't planning on saying this. It's all your fault. صلى على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. There's always a person in the community that has to go and call this company like Oreo cookies and ask about this product. Is it halal or is it haram? What are you doing? Why are you making phone calls? Why are you calling? Let people enjoy their Oreo cookies. Let people enjoy their Pepsi, for example, or whatever material it is. There's always someone that comes, oh, you know what? I discovered this is haram. Or I discovered that is najis. Who told you to go and ask? Who told you? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made things halal. Unless you find out, someone comes and tells you, that's another story. And by the way, you don't have to announce. You don't have to announce. Khalas, you found out that it's haram, keep it to yourself. Don't burst people's bubble. Let them enjoy themselves. Wallah. One day, Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam, this is the teachings of Ahlul Bayt. One day, Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam left, previously they didn't have showers at home. They didn't have showers at home. There were public showers until recently. Until maybe 30, 40 years ago in Iraq and Iran, there were public showers. Al-Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam went to perform ghusl. He came out of the shower. Someone told him, Yabna Rasulullah, there's a spot on your back that water didn't reach. The Imam told him, you didn't have to tell me. Who told you that you have to tell me? You didn't have to tell me. And then the Imam took some water and he wiped his back. Khalas. Ghusl is that easy. You don't have to redo your ghusl. If you've missed a spot, grab some water, wash it, and that's it. You're done. Ghusl is easy. Islam is easy. You know who makes Islam hard? The guy that calls Oreo cookies. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Number seven, extremists have a negative interpretation of everything. They believe in conspiracy theories. Everything to them is a conspiracy. Everything. 2 nights ago, we came here to the IECOC, there wasn't electricity. That must have been a conspiracy against Imam Hossein alayhi salam. Must have been. Everything to them is a conspiracy. That's a problem. When you see everything as a conspiracy, there's an invisible hand behind everything that destroys. That's not normal. For you to think everything is a conspiracy. Unfortunately, this is part of our culture. A lot of us, we buy into conspiracy theories. Someone dies, he must have been killed. He must have been poisoned. This is a sign of extremism. When everything for you becomes a conspiracy. This is extremism. طيب. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. What causes religious extremism? What are the causes? What causes certain individuals to be aggressive and violent and abusive in their views and their religious views? There's several reasons. Number one, low educational levels. Those who do not study, have studied less, they easily condemn. They're not accepting of others. There's a correlation between lack of education and religious extremism. On the other hand, the more we know, the more we study, the more we research, the more we understand, the more we're accepting of others. The more we appreciate others. The less likely I will be a religious extremist, the more I study, the more I learn. Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam says, Al-nasu a'da' ma jahilu. People are enemies of that which they are ignorant of. If you're ignorant of something, you'll be careful. You'll be extreme. You'll think that thing is dangerous. But the more we study, the more we understand, the more we comprehend, the more I work on myself educationally, the less extreme I will be, the more accepting I will be of others. 2, sometimes extremism is a reaction to a political rule. And we all understand this. Sometimes a difference between a political rule, my differences with a regime, a government, a political rule causes me to become religiously extreme. That's how sometimes extremism develops. They will oppose everything that regime believes in or implements. Let me give you an example. This is an example. For example, that regime or that government believes in the unity of Muslims. There's a certain religious extremist group that goes against unity of Muslims. Why? Only because that regime believes in unity. The religious extremists, they go against unity. They say, no, we don't believe in unity. We don't need to have unity. Or for example, that regime, supports Gaza. They say, no, we don't need to support Gaza. It's a reaction to a political rule. A lot of times, religious extremists, they develop as a reaction to a political rule. Sometimes it's the environment. An extremist environment causes extremist individuals. Your background, your environment, your family, your friends, the institution where you studied. It could cause you to either be an extremist or a moderate. Your teachers. Extremist teachers produce extremist students. Open-minded teachers produce open-minded students. The environment plays a major role What sort of environment do you come from? Is it an open-minded environment or an extremist environment? Sometimes it's mental health problems, my dear friends. It's mental health. A lot of religious extremists, they suffer from mental health or OCD or depression or anger management. These things, although this is very normal, it's not a taboo. Mental health is real, my dear friends, and it's not a taboo. It could happen to any of us. It could happen to any of us. And the right way is to seek treatment. If I'm suffering from mental health, a mental health disorder, depression, OCD, I should seek help. And there's no shame in it. And if we have friends that are suffering from mental health, we should encourage them to seek treatment. It's not a taboo. It's not a aib. It's just like any other health issue. Imagine someone who has kidney failure. Is that a taboo? If they go to a doctor, is that a taboo? No. So too is mental health. And a lot of us, because many of us are migrants, many of us suffered, many of us have lost family members, we've been through war. Who hasn't been through war? Which one of us hasn't been through war? That's a lot of our families, our parents, maybe our grandparents, they suffer from mental health. And that's okay, as long as they seek treatment, as long as we encourage them to seek treatment. Sometimes these religious extremists, they suffer from mental health and they don't even know it. And they deny it. They deny the fact that they suffer from mental health. And their followers don't admit it either. Now listen, this leader of ours, he suffers from mental health. And that's why he has extremist tendencies. He believes in extremist thoughts because he has a mental health issue. He needs to seek treatment. Not having friends from other schools of thought, from various opinions, from various religions, this can cause you to become religiously extreme. Not being open to the other. Not reading about others, whether it's religions, schools of thought, political schools of thought, being secluded, living in isolation, this causes religious extremism. If I sit, for example, in Karbala, in my home, and I don't meet anyone, not from the east, not from the west, I don't meet other ulama, I don't meet other politicians, I will develop certain ideas. I will live in seclusion. I will live in isolation. I will have extremist tendencies. While Islam encourages us to hear about others, listen to other views, listen to other opinions, keep an open mind. فَبَشِّرْ عِبَادٍ الَّذِينَ يَسْتَمِعُونَ الْقَوْلَ فَيَتَّبِعُونَ أَحْسَنَهُ. Give glad tidings to my servants, those who listen. Those who listen. Let's not be like the people of Nuh. The people of Nuh, جعلوا أصابعهم في آذانهم واستغشوا ثيابهم وأصروا واستكبروا استكبارا. The people of Nuh, they put their fingers in their ears, they covered their head, and they say, we don't want to hear it. Hear no evil, see no evil. This is not Islam. Islam says, الَّذِينَ يَسْتَمِعُونَ الْقَوْلِ. Be open-minded. Listen to others. Give people a chance. Don't immediately label them as deviants. Don't immediately label them as spies. Give people a chance to speak. And you never know. You never know. Maybe you have a lot in common. Maybe you have thoughts that you have in common, you share. You have more in common than you know, than you think. For some, they don't mix. They don't socialize. Only in their little cliche. Only in their little group. Only in their own environment. They don't meet with anyone. They don't socialize with anyone. This is a problem. Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam says, وَعَلَيْكُمْ بِالتَّوَاصُلِ وَالتَّبَادُلِ. I encourage you to meet with one another, socialize with one another, visit one another, exchange ideas, exchange thoughts, exchange opinions. That's how we grow. Isa ibn Maryam would say, اعرض الرأي على الرأي ينتج الصواب. How do you know if your opinion is right? By measuring it with other opinions, with other thoughts. You have to keep an open mind. Another factor of extremism is when some groups become isolated. They become excommunicated. They become a cult. When you're excommunicated, when you're victimized, when everyone labels you as deviant, you become a cult. You become a cult. You leave the mainstream and you become a cult, and this is a mistake. We have to be careful not to excommunicate anyone. We don't excommunicate anyone. Imam Hussein is for all. Ahl al-Bayt are for all. Who am I to judge? Who am I to judge other people's character or other people's views and opinions? Imam Hussein is for everyone. Don't isolate anyone. Don't say this person is not a Shia. Ajib. Who are you to say they're not Shia? Who are we to say they're not Shia? The Ahl al-Bayt are welcoming of everyone. They're accepting of everyone. I remember in the 90s, there was a scholar that was marginalized. That was marginalized and isolated. This was in the 90s. They came to Sayyid al-Sistani, Hafidhahullah. They told him, Sayyidina, issue a statement against the scholar. When other scholars in Qom had issued a statement against a specific scholar, they came to Sayyid al-Sistani and told him, Sayyidina, it is your turn to issue a statement against the scholar. He said, no. He said, no. This is a mistake. This is not wise. Because if I were to do that, his followers will become outcasts and they will become a cult. I will not make them into a cult. We have to be welcoming. We have to be accepting. Someone made a mistake, correct their mistake, grab their hand and bring them back. We're quick to judge and we're quick to push others away. Instead of pushing, let's bring them back. Let's tell them, listen, you made a mistake, but you could fix your mistake. Come back. Come back, it's never too late. Some extremists, they don't believe in what they say. They're only doing it for fame and popularity. Today, especially with social media, with TikTok, with Instagram, we have certain individuals, they say crazy things and they do crazy things, not because they believe in it. No, believe me. Because they want fame. They want popularity. They want to go viral. They want the likes and the comments and the shares. This is why. It's not because they believe in it. It's for fame and popularity. And then, my dear friends, know that extremism is a phase. It's a phase that some people go through. But later on, they will realize that they were mistaken. There were a lot of extremists. And I'm sure you've heard of them. You've read about them. They were extreme. They held extreme religious views or political views. And then later on, they changed. They became moderate. They became liberal. Their views changed. Because extremism is a phase. And then all of a sudden you wake up and you realize that you were wrong. What were you doing all this time? Islam is a religion of moderation. Islam is not an extremist religion. Islam is a religion of moderation. وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا. We created you a moderate nation. A moderate nation. The teachings of Islam is all about moderation. Look, وَلَا تَجْهَرْ بِصَلَاتِكَ وَلَا تُخَافِتْ بِهَا. Do not raise your voice on salah, nor whisper. وَابْتَغِي وَلَا تُخَافِتْ بِهَا. Keep a middle ground. وَلَا تَجْعَلْ يَدَكَ مَغْلُولَةً إِلَىٰ عُنُقِكَ وَلَا تَبْسُطْهَا كُلَّ الْبَسْطِ. When it comes to spending, don't hold your hands and be stingy and greedy and you don't spend, nor do you extend your hands and open your hands and you spend all the money that you have. It's about moderation. لا جبر ولا تفويض ولكن أمر بين أمرين. There's no free will nor predestination, but it's somewhere in the middle. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. Islam is about moderation. Islam is a moderate religion. We've made it into extreme. We are the problem. Some humans are the problem. Some Muslims are the problem. Islam doesn't have a problem. The problem is with some Muslims. In the beginning I said that the Khawarij were extremists. They chose Laylatul Qadr to kill Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. On the holiest night, imagine. On the holiest night, they decided to kill Imam Ali alayhi salam so that the reward is multiplied and it's doubled. Amir al-Mu'mineen was a victim of extremism, and so too was Imam Hossein alayhi salam. Imam Hussein was also a victim of extremism. You think those who killed him were not religious? Had nothing to do with religion? No. On the day of Ashura, 2 groups prayed Salatul Jama'ah. 2 camps prayed Salatul Jama'ah. One side was Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and I will get to that. On the other side there was Umar bin Sa'ad. Umar bin Sa'ad led Salah on the day of Ashura. They prayed. They had their adhan and their iqamah, and they even prayed Salatul Jama'ah. They prayed together. They were not a people that were not religious or didn't believe in God. No, they were, but they were extreme. And Imam Hussein alayhi salam also prayed Salatul Jama'ah, but how? With arrows being rained on him. Imam Hussein was in the middle of the battle when one of his companions said to him, Yabna Rasulullah, hana waqtu salah. It is the time of salah. And Imam Hussein tells him, Rahimakallah, dhakarta salah, ja'alaka Allah min al-musallin. You remembered salah, may Allah makes you amongst those who establish salah. Those who killed Imam Hussein alayhi salam, they had an excuse. They would tell him, بل نقاتلك بغضا منا لأبيك. We're only killing you out of hatred for your father. Out of hatred for your father. This was extreme. This was extreme. They would come and they'd shout at Imam Hussein alayhi salam, the only grandson to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi alive. No other grandson was alive on that planet other than Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And they knew who he was. They knew who his father was. They knew who his mother was. They knew his uncle, his grandfather, his grandmother. They know. Yet they killed him thirsty. On the night of Ashura, Shumr ibn al-Jawshan comes out riding his horse. He comes to the camp of Imam Hussein alayhi salam and he says, Ayna banu ukhtina? Where are my nephews? Meaning whom? Who was the nephew of Shumr? Al-Abbas alayhi salam. Abul Fadl al-Abbas and his brothers. Of course, he was not the nephew of Shumr. But because Shumr was from Bani Kilab, which is the tribe of al-Baneen, he was related to the mother of Abul Fadl al-Abbas. So he says, where are my nephews? Ayn al-Abbas wa ikhwatih? Abbas didn't speak. He didn't reply. Imam Hussein alayhi salam told him, Ajibhu walau kana kafiran. Reply to him, Ya Abbas. Even if he's a kafir. But reply to him. Reply to him. Al-Abbas came out and he said, what do you want? Mada turid? You're calling me for what? He said, Laka al-aman, anta wa ikhwatik. Laka al-aman. I have brought you peace for you and your brothers. You and your brothers, if you leave the camp of Hussein, you will be saved. No one will harm you, no one will kill you. Al-Abbas was angered. You bring me peace? And the son of Rasulullah, the grandson of Rasulullah has no peace? أنت تؤمنني وابن بنت رسول الله لا أمانة لا أمان له لعنك الله ولعن أمانك. May Allah curse you and curse your peace. You bring peace for me and no peace for the grandson of Rasulullah. This was Abul Fadl al-Abbas alayhi salam. Abul Fadl al-Abbas was not an ordinary man. Abul Fadl al-Abbas had basira, had knowledge. He knew who he was dealing with. He dealt with Imam Hussein alayhi salam not as a brother, but as an imam. He treated Imam Hussein as an imam, not a brother. He fought with his brother, not because he was his brother, but because it was his imam, his ordained imam from Allah Azza wa Jal. Abul Fadl Abbas was very, very special. Very special for who he was, for knowing and understanding the position of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And the Imams of Ahlul Bayt also know the position of Abu al-Fadl Abbas. You know, Abu al-Fadl Abbas, 4 Imams kissed his hands. 4 Imams. The first was Imam Ali alayhi salam, the day that he was born. When Abu al-Fadl Abbas was born, Imam Ali alayhi salam, he took the baby with a glowing face, this beautiful baby, Qamar Bani Hashim. He took him in his hands and he grabbed his small little hands and he started kissing them. al-Baneen, she told him, my master, Amir al-Mu'mineen, is there something wrong with my child? Does he have a deficiency? Is there something wrong? He said, no, there's nothing wrong. But I kiss the hands that will be cut off one day. They will be cut off one day. This was Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. Another Imam was Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam. His nephew, Imam Zayn al-Abidin, would kiss the hands of his uncle Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas. And there was someone else who also kissed the hands of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas. It was Imam Hossein. But this time the hands were not with the body. The hands were cut off. Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas alayhi salam comes to his brother, Akhi Aba Abdullah, i'dhan li an uqatil ha'ula al-li'am. Give me permission to go and fight. Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas was the only one remaining, the final one remaining in the camp of Imam Hussein. Everyone else had left. All of Bani Hashim, all of the companions had left one by one. It was only Al-Abbas remaining. Imam Hussein looked around. He told him, Akhi, Abu al-Fadl, Anta sahibu liwa'i, idha madayt tamazzaqa askari. My brother Abu al-Fadl, you hold the banner of my army. If you leave, I will have no army. I will have no army. Imam Hussein saw Abu al-Fadl Abbas as an army. By himself, he was an army. He didn't give him permission. He told him, then give me permission to bring some water to these children. If you don't give me permission to fight, at least give me permission to bring water to the children. Imam Hussein gives him permission. You know, when Imam Hussein tells Abu al-Fadl Abbas to ride, you know what he tells him? He says, Irkab binafsi anta ya akhi. Get on your horse, may your brother be a sacrifice for you. May I die for you, ya Abu al-Fadl. Abu al-Fadl Abbas gets on his horse. He has the water jug in his neck. And he goes in the middle of the enemies. When they see him, they thought that Ali ibn Abi Talib himself had entered the battle. They all disperse. Abu al-Fadl Abbas comes directly in the middle of the river. With his horse, he enters the river. He starts going around in the river. And he could hear the children shouting, Al-Atash, Al-Atash. Abu al-Fadl Abbas grabs a handful of water. He brings it to his mouth. He's about to drink. Yet he remembers the thirst of his brother Hussein. I drink before my brother Hussein. My brother Hussein is thirsty and I drink before him? Never. Ya nafsu min ba'd al-Hussein huni. Wa ba'dahu la kunti an takuni. Wa tashrabina barid al-ma'ini. Tallah ma hadha fi'alu dini. Wala fi'alu sadiqil. Yaqini. Abu al-Fadl Abbas grabs the water jug, he fills it with water, and then he turns towards the camp. He's about to come back to his brother Hussein. All of a sudden he's surrounded by the enemy, some with arrows, some with spears, and some with swords. Abu al-Fadl Abbas takes out his sword and he fights fiercely until one of them hits him on his right hand, cutting it off. He shouts, Wallahi in qata'tumu yamini, inni uhami abadan an dini wa an imamin صادق اليقين نجل النبي الطاهر الأمين. Abu al-Fadl Abbas grabs his sword. with his left hand, and he fights fiercely until someone cuts it off for him. Abu al-Fadl Abbas loses both hands. He still has the water jug, and until an arrow comes and pierces the water jug, the water flows to the ground. Another arrow comes and hits Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas in his right eye. Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas loses his right eye, and then someone hits him with a pole on his head. Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas falls to the ground. Now when you fall to the ground, how do you hold yourself from falling? Using your hands, right? Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas has no hands to break his fall. He falls immediately on his face, crushing the arrow in his eye. Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas shouts, Akhi, for the first time in his life, he shouts, Akhi, Aba Abdullah, adrik akhak. Imam Hossein hears the voice of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas. He rushes to the river to see his brother. First he arrives, he sees the water jug on the ground, and then he sees the flag on the ground, and then he sees the two hands of Abu al-Fadl Abbas on the ground. He grabs them, he kisses the hands, and then he sees his brother lying, the arrow in his eye. He comes to his brother. Abu al-Fadl Abbas thinks that this is an enemy about to finish him off. He says, Uqsamu alayka ya hada, do not kill me until my brother comes to me. And I say my farewell to my brother Hossein. Imam Hossein tells him, it is I, your brother. I am your brother. I am your brother. Akhi, al-an inkasara dhahri وقلت حيلتي وشمتني عدوي. My brother, you have broken my back. يا خويا انكسر ظهري ولا اقدر اقوم وصرت مركز يا خويا الكل الهموم. يا خويا استوحدوني عقبك القوم ولا واحد علي بعد ينغر. Imam Hussein alayhi salam holds the head of Abu al-Fadl Abbas. He puts it in his lap. Abu al-Fadl Abbas moves his head. Again, the Imam holds his head and brings it to his lap. Twice, 3 times. Abu al-Fadl keeps on moving his head from the lap of Imam Hussein. He tells him, Akhi, why are you doing this? Let me enjoy having your head, your final moments, your head in my lap. He said, Akhi Aba Abdullah, in an hour from now, you will put your head in whose lap? Who will be supportive of you? Imam Hussein gets up and he comes back to the tent. His daughter Sukaina comes to him. أبتاه أين عمي العباس هل جاء بالماء وهل بقي من الماء شيء. His sister Zainab comes. Where's our brother Al-Abbas? Imam Hussein can no longer speak. His hand is on his back. His back is broken. He can't utter a word. He goes to the tent of Abu al-Fadl Abbas. He grabs the pole and he drops the tent, meaning the owner of the tent is not coming back tonight. He's not coming back. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. نسألك اللهم وندعوك باسمك العلي الأعظم الأعز الأجل الأكرم يا الله. اللهم لا تدع لنا ذنبا إلا غفرته ولا هما إلا فرجته ولا عيبا إلا سترته ولا خوفا إلا آمنته ولا رزقا إلا بسطته ولا شملا إلا جمعته ولا مرضا إلا شفيته ولا غائبا إلا حفظته وأدنيته ولا حاجة من حوائج الدنيا والآخرة لك فيها رضا ولنا فيها صلاح إلا قضيتها ويسرتها يا أرحم الراحمين. ولأرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات والعلماء والشهداء نقرأ سورة الفاتحة مع الصلوات.